going to introduce myself. Good evening, everyone. I am Jennifer Abraham. I am the Professional Development Co-Chair for Women in Nuclear, and I'm also on the Professional Development Committee for CNTA. And this is our first virtual professional development event. So we thank you guys for spending your time with us, your personal time coming on, and hopefully you will gain something from this that will help you in your personal and your professional development and your growth throughout your career and your life. And I also want to thank the committee for planning the event so we can get it on board, get it going. And I also want to thank our SRNS Senior Leadership Panel for their willingness to participate. We really appreciate it. The topic for the event is why work does not happen at work. And this is inspired by the TED Talk video that we will all view together. And we have a chat room, and we would like for everyone to participate in the chat, ask questions, express your thoughts and concerns, whatever you want to say pertaining to the TED Talk video. We would love for you to participate in the chat. We will also have an open discussion at the end of the video with our leadership panel. So that will give you another opportunity to actually speak to everyone in the group with your questions and all that good stuff. And we have some prizes to give away. And throughout the event, we have 4 prizes. And the first prize actually is going to go to, and I'm sorry, let me look at the name again. Thunander. So you are the first winner of one of our prizes, and we will use the email address that you signed up with to give you options on how to retrieve your prize. So you are the first winner because you logged on first. So you were early, so we appreciate that. And just for some housekeeping, we would like for you to keep your microphones mute until it's your turn to speak. And you are welcome to have your video on if you want to. It is not a requirement. So it's up to you whether you want to have your video on, and you will have opportunities throughout the event to speak live, and also please participate in the chat room. Please participate in the chat room. I'm saying that for a reason. So I will hand it off to Angela Martin. She is our Professional Development Chair for Women in Nuclear. And she will introduce our leadership panel to you all this evening. And after she finishes with her introduction, she will start our TED Talk video. All right?
All right. Thank you, Jen. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited about this first ever collaboration between these 2 great organizations, CNTA and SRS Women in Nuclear. And we especially thank our esteemed panelists. We really appreciate them lending their time and wisdom to this effort. And so as I put their photos on the screen, I'm just going to go through and talk a little bit about who they are. First we have, can everybody see the screen okay? See the picture? I'm assuming yes. Can everybody see? Okay.
Yes, we all can.
All right, so first we have Ms. Purjita K. Hightower, also known as PK. PK earned a BS degree in physics from Jackson State University, an MS degree in nuclear engineering from The Ohio State University, and an MS in project management from George Washington University. PK started her career at the Savannah River site 32 years ago as a reactor physicist charge designer in the reactor technology department. Other positions held include K-reactor restart shift engineer, lead engineer for the spent fuel storage basin operations, the high-level waste environmental compliance manager, and the closure business unit environmental compliance manager. Currently, PK serves as the SRNS Director of Interface Management and Manager of Continuous Improvement. She enjoys volunteering in her community. She has served 2 terms as President of the Board of Directors for the Mental Health Association of Aiken County, now known as Mental Health America. She is former Guardian ad litem and is currently serving on the Board of Directors for the United Way of Aiken County. PK and her husband Willer have a blended family which includes 3 adult daughters, 8 grandchildren, and the apple of her eyes, Blue Ivy, an 8-year-old Shih Tzu. Thank you so much, PK, for joining us this evening. Next we have Ms. Janice Lawson. Janice is the Deputy Vice President of Environmental Management Operations for SRNS, a position earned due to her leadership, resourcefulness, and teamwork. Her responsibility includes the safe and secure receipt, handling, storage, processing, and shipment of special nuclear materials. Prior to SRS, Janice began her career in commercial nuclear power. At SRS, Janice has successfully led a dual facility manager role for both the L Area Spent Fuel Program and the K Area Nuclear Material Project. In addition, her roles include radiological worker training manager, special projects, and leadership roles in the Environmental Bioassay Laboratory, F&H Analytical Technical Support Manager, and F&H Laboratory Service Manager. Janice is actively involved in community service and has served on many projects such as Cleanup Day at Hope Center in Graniteville, packaging meals for the outreach program, repairs for the elderly, and working with the local STEM Girls Camp. She serves on the American Heart Association Executive Leadership Board for the CSRA Heart Walk and the Board for Children's Place Incorporated. Janice works tirelessly to drive awareness and successful fundraising events for each of these organizations. Thank you so much, Janice, for joining us. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Rick Sprague. Rick is the Senior Vice President of Environmental Safety, Health, and Quality for SRNS. In this capacity, he has site-wide responsibility for environmental compliance and remediation projects, occupational safety and health, industrial hygiene, radiological controls, medical services, emergency services, safeguards and security, quality assurance, training, procedures, and operational excellence. Previously, he served as Senior Vice President of Technical Services, Associate Laboratory Director for Nuclear Materials Programs at Savannah River National Laboratory, and several leadership roles in nuclear facility operations, engineering, integrated safety management, project management, independent oversight, and business services. Rick has an MBA from the University of South Carolina and a BS degree in chemical engineering from Clarkson University. Welcome all of the panelists, and again, we thank you so much for joining us this evening. So at this time, we will go ahead and view the video. The video is about 15 minutes long. After the video, we will proceed with the discussion. And here is the video now.
All right, welcome everybody. My name's Haley. Want to extend another warm welcome to everybody who's able to join us tonight. I'm a representation from CNTA, from our professional development and mentoring subcommittee.
Here at Peter Skillman introduced a
Okay,
design
let me
challenge
turn off the video.
called the Marshmallow Challenge. And
so one thing I want to ask everyone, get ready to type out your answer. If you were paying attention, what are M&Ms besides tasty chocolate treats? All right, I think we have a winner. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to discussion. Do we have anyone who'd like to open up with a question or a comment on the video that we just watched? If so, go ahead and unmute yourself, and if you want to direct questions at our panelists, by all means, go ahead.
So for the attendees who don't have the ability to unmute themselves, what you can do is along the bottom, you have the ability to raise your hand, and at that point, we can allow you to talk to ask a direct question. But I believe we also had the three panelists who were going to speak to their thoughts on what they thought of the video to kick off the discussion. So I don't know if there was an order decided, but I'm gonna let the three of you figure it out.
We can kick it off with Janice if she's ready.
You want me to go first? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I actually watched the video a couple of times. I didn't like being labeled one of the M&Ms, okay, managers and meetings, but I can give you my thoughts on it. I like going to the office because there's less distractions for me at the office. And so that's something that allows me to get focused, but because I have all the resources I need, I have manuals, I have people, because I'm a people person and I like building relationships and being able to talk to people. Typically, I don't like to call people at home unless I absolutely have to. So I really like going to the office to get my work done. I am in favor of people working at home that we've started since we've had COVID. I don't have a problem with that as long as they can implement it and they have work that they can do at home. I do like for people, though, to split that time if possible and be in the office a couple of days a week and then, work from home a couple of days a week. And I think that probably allows them to build up stuff that they could perform at home and feel like they've got something to do. So I'm not opposed to telework. I think it moves us into the 21st century, so that's a good thing. As far as how I manage the distractions at work, that has evolved over time for me based on the role that I have. Now I have an admin like Rick who can help us manage our time a little bit better as far as disruption. If I really need some downtime, I can have my calendar blocked and then they can help keep people from just walking in the office. That's a hard thing to do because typically we like to say we have an open door policy, but if we really need some time, we can shut the door. Before I was in the role that I am, because I kind of worked my way up through the ranks, I would shut my door, and that should send a message to people that I have work to do, that I have something I've got to get done. But that will not work if you shut your door all the time. And I also realize not everyone has a door to shut. And so that can be a problem when people are popping in. I can see where that's a distraction. I don't think it's just managers. I think it's everyone. That's what I've experienced, that will stop into your office just to chat with you or talk with you. And I think it's okay. I think that we don't like to do it, but it's all right to tell people that you really are working on something, that you're focused, that you need to continue to work on that. And sometimes it helps if you will say, hey, can I get with you later? I really need to finish what I'm doing right now. And a lot of people will respect that. And that's how you kind of train people to how you need them to behave in order for you to get your work done. And so those are, I've always been pretty direct with people when I have to get stuff done to let them know that I need to get things done. As far as your manager, if you feel like your manager is popping in a lot, and I know that we have a lot of junior people on site and they may feel like they're being micromanaged. And so my thoughts there are, have you negotiated a time where you'll have that task done with your manager? Have you had that discussion and said, hey, I'll have that done on Thursday. If they come into your office and bother you or interrupt you, you can say, hey, I thought we agreed to Thursday. I think that is okay to have that discussion. And then also, have you gave them an outline of what the deliverable will look like? If it's something important, hey, this is how I think we should address it, or I will have a draft to you by this time. And so those are things where you can help manage your manager, right? By agreeing on what the product's going to look like, and then also agreeing when you're going to have that product done. And so that can be helpful. But the other thing is that you got to deliver. You got to build trust. I think, a lot of people, just me being a leader in the workforce, I know I give it to certain people, and I don't have to say anything else. They're going to deliver, okay? They know what I need. They know what time I need it, and they're going to deliver. So you got to build that trust too, that you're going to deliver what needs to be delivered on time. And so there's a little, most of that's just communication, whether it be a manager or a coworker, on how to manage your time. Now meetings, yeah, those can be a problem, right? So what I like to do, which is not everyone on Zoom can do this, so I like to at least get my meetings into like the front part of the day or towards the evening to give me a block of time. A lot of times that's not possible for people that may be listening in tonight. But I think it's okay to talk to your managers about maybe the best times to have meetings. I think meetings are important. I don't necessarily think you need to have a meeting to solve a problem, but we have a lot of projects going on. I work in a facility, we have timelines, we have goals, and I think that we need to come together and status where we're at. I do not think that it takes everyone in the organization to come to that meeting. I've gone to meetings before, and I may have one support group, and almost everybody in the support group is at that meeting. I think you can have a representative at the meeting. I think that we need to streamline the number of people that come to the meeting, and sometimes I'll ask them, why are you here? Because they, I don't want to spend all that money for a bunch of people sitting in the room either. I'd rather them be out doing work. And so I think a lot of that, again, is having a discussion, who needs to be at the meeting, how long the meeting lasts. I think that's up to the participants too. Do you come to the meeting? Are you prepared? A lot of times I might be at a meeting, it's a scheduled meeting, and I want to hear a couple things at that meeting. On schedule, on track to this day. I don't want to hear the saga of why we're going to move it out 7 days. I think that discussion should have already taken place with the manager before you got there. And so you should be moving through those meetings a lot quicker. And I also think that we get off target. And I think that's why it's important to have an agenda so you stay on target and you get the meeting done on time like you planned it. And so for meetings, I think they're important. I think that if we can reduce them and combine them, I'm okay with that. I think people need to come to the meetings prepared and ready to status or discuss what they have on the agenda. And I think you guys stay on target with those meetings in order to keep them productive, and also to protect people's time so they can go do work. So are there any questions anyone would like to ask, or anybody waving their hand?
I think there were some questions in the chat.
There's a hand raised. I was trying to get the question from the person, or trying to get the person who has their hand raised.
It's Gilda.
Okay, Gilda, do you have a question? Gilda? Did we lose her? Okay. So can we move on and come back to that person? I think something's going on with her sound. Oh, she's here. Oh, she's muted, so she needs to be unmuted.
Allison, do you have control of unmuting people?
Yes, the person with the hand raised should now be able to ask a question.
There she goes.
Great, thanks. So I'm one of the 8% that disagreed with the premise, and so I guess my question is just, isn't it obvious that this is it really is dependent on the job, and that anything done badly is going to be a detriment to your organization. So if you do your meetings badly, exactly the things, Janice, you just described, you over-invite people, you're not prepared, you don't stick to an agenda, of course that's going to be counterproductive. But I don't think I'm the only one that recognizes, one, that he has devalued the importance of being able to interact with people, and that if I come home and I have answered questions and helped progress the project all day long, I've done legitimate work. So that's one piece of it there. And I guess, you people at SRS, you're basically an engineering organization like I was working for Westinghouse, and just the synergies of being able to be together and working in parallel paths. Do you think that his premise really is valid in those situations, that you can, simply in as timely a fashion that you could really transmit the information to each other when you're working on a project, versus a face-to-face meeting and getting those key people together?
So I believe that we can get key people together. I think with our telework and that, we've done a lot of teleconferences where we've got the right people online. I think the key thing though is getting the right people together for the meeting, not over inviting people, and then those people invited not bringing all their friends with them. I think that's important, that we keep it streamlined. But there is that collaboration that needs to take place, but it needs to be with the right people. And I think that not only conserves time, but I think you also get a lot more work done. But that call, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to go into a room to have a meeting. We have learned that. We've learned how to manage, I think, a little bit more, since some of us are not on site all the time or all during the week. And so a teleconference call, a Zoom call, which we do not use for work, by the way. But there are different ways that we can communicate now, but we still only need to have the right people at those meetings.
I want to make sure we hear from all of our panelists. Rick or PK, do you have anything to add to that as well?
This is PK. The one thing I think that's important, especially with an organization where we have a lot of new people, a lot of times they don't understand or maybe not necessarily have the template of what's important at the meeting. If you can allow people to understand the deliverable and what it is that they need to bring to the meeting. And I know we have people say, well, everybody should know, I just want to know when you're going to have something done. Well, sometimes when you have people who have not had the mentoring and coaching, sometimes they don't understand what those deliverables are. And then, and another thing I think with the managers, a lot of times if you would have one-on-one meetings with your manager through the at least maybe once a month, as well as keep your manager on the CC on some of the emails, I think that helps them understand where you are and maybe not have them worry about it. And Janice mentioned earlier, deliver on what you're doing. And then your manager doesn't have to come and ask a lot of questions. And then sometimes he can read based on communication that you have. A lot of times people fail to CC their managers so they can get just a feel of what it is that the person is doing and where they are on the project. So I think that's very important. And as far as finding a time in meetings can be important if they are planned well and people understand why you're there and what is the end result of the meeting. What do you want to walk out of that room with? What information do you want to walk out with? And if people can understand that, and that's the planning part. Spend the time planning, and then you won't have a problem. And then I think one other thing that we had, Janice had talked about earlier, finding the time to do work. Either come in early or stay a little bit later. I find that my most productive time is between 5 and 7:30 at night at work. Now, when I come home and teleworking, yes, I can do that, especially when I have calls. But also, some of those BB Fridays when there are not a lot of people there, and you have all your equipment, you have the screens you need, you can focus. And I think that's important, is carving out that time where you won't have the interruption. And sometimes with some managers closing the door, if they need something, they're going to come in and ask you, but maybe if you keep them informed, you won't have the problem. So that's just my kind of take on the question. Thank
I'll just weigh in real quickly here. You know, if you have nothing to contribute in a meeting, you shouldn't be in the meeting. How many times have you gone to a meeting and had nothing to say or contribute, or others didn't? And second thought, if you're in a meeting, you need to take the opportunity to influence the energy and the duration and the outcomes of that meeting. You know, for me, you know, if I go to a meeting and I don't think I'm contributing, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting everyone's time. I saw the picture of the dog when I was speaking. That wasn't my dog.
Isn't that PK?
Dog.
That was PK's dog. It's probably a better picture than one of me.
Looks like we have a question in the chat from Chantika. I apologize if I butchered your name. It says, nationally, companies have seen more productive employees with telework, and there have been polls where employees are working longer at home and don't really mind the flexibility of longer hours. What are your thoughts on balancing the work-home life, and how do you also get that same morale at work?
Well, I can try to tackle that one to start with. I think that we do see increased productivity from a large part of our teleworkers. But I also think there are challenges with teleworkers. Clearly, there's not the in-office distractions, but I think teleworkers run the risk of becoming isolated and marginalized and left behind. I think that's a challenge that we have to work through. I'm a boomer, and you know, for us, the face-to-face interaction was very important growing up and advancing in our careers. And I realize that we're dealing with a different generation and folks that really enjoy telework, and I'm glad we can provide that to them. But I think the verdict is out on whether it is good for the worker and good for the company long term.
I have a question for the panelists. He brought up a good point about we've been very productive with our telework with SRNS, but I think about companies like Google who have all these cool things at the work site that your employees can enjoy. Do you think that could be why some people are really enjoying and getting more work done at home, is because the environment that they're in is more enjoyable than being on the work site where there's nothing really there to, you know, boost their morale, boost their excitement about being in the place? Anybody?
Well, you know, morale boosting being at home, morale boosting being at work, I guess I enjoy my job, so that's motivation for me to get things done. And I think it's important that wherever you are, the results are being seen in the efforts that you put out. And the motivation, well, you have the opportunity now to do teleworking, but there might become a time where teleworking might not be an option. It probably will still continue, but maybe not on the scale that it is now. So I think the motivation for work is you need to really enjoy what you're doing. And I don't know, the Google, you know, I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we'll have everything that a Google has, because we're not a private entity and we don't have that funding levels to do those types of things. But I think it's important for people to understand that and have a appreciation for the things that we're doing, and the motivation has to come from within too. I think we have to create, as managers and leaders, we have to create an atmosphere where you can do your best, where you have everything you need to do your best. And that's on us, and that's incumbent on us to provide that for you. But I guess, I'm not sure why home would motivate me more so than work. I think as long as I have a place where I can do my best, and maybe some people like being at home, but can't lose focus on the work and the results that you need.
One question I actually had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just.
I'll ask my question after.
Okay, I was just going to comment on what Joe Blow just said about a compelling place to work, and that's some of the things that we're doing at SRNS. They are doing things to make the scenery of work more appealing to the newcomers, the millennials, and all that good stuff. So I do feel like I know we're never going to be Google. I mean, that's impossible. But I was just bringing that example of how the workplace, they bring things like how we have food trucks, and because we're so far out, there's really nothing, when we go to lunch, there's no really restaurants for us to go to. So by us having the food trucks, we're doing the SRNS Snap thing with the pictures, and doing different things with the cafeteria, just all of those things making a more compelling place to work. So when you go to work, you feel good about what you're walking into, the building and your scenery and all that good stuff. I feel like that plays a big part in how your day goes. It's like you feel a little bit upbeat because you have nice things to look at, and it just feels nice and warm and cozy when you go into work. And I think that's what they're trying to do, just bringing the millennials in and having some good things for us to enjoy while we're at work.
So I'd like to say something real quick. So I have heard that we have some that feel like they're getting more done at home, but then when I think about that, I really think it goes back to the tasks that they're performing. Some people may be working calculations or writing papers and that. And that's why I believe that it's a balance. Because to me, being at home, we get old too, seeing the same four walls and all that, okay? But I think it's a balance. Like an engineer, they may be responsible for systems, they may be looking at calculations, they may have to be doing like a system health report and that. But there's something to be said about coming in and going into the facility and looking at that system and walking it down and interacting with the people that actually have to work with that system. And so I do believe that we have people that are getting work done at home, but I think it has to do with the type of tasks that they're performing and not necessarily the environment that they're in. That's where I'm at. I do believe, and I do like coming into a nice, clean, a workplace. I'm not against that whatsoever, but I don't want us to get confused on, the work environment that they're in versus the tasks that they're performing, and they can do that task at home and get more done at home because they don't feel like they're being distracted. Rick, help me.
Yeah, I think we all grew up with the same thought here, is that we enjoy coming into work. We enjoy the field time and the access to our employees. I sort of struggle with the fact that I realize I'm dealing with a different generation of employees. And I have a son that teleworks and loves it and is very productive, and probably more so than he would be, in the office. So, I think we're in sort of a revolutionary moment right now. COVID's forced our hand, and we've got all these teleworkers, and we're doing all this collaboration by Zoom and WebEx and Teams, and I've got to step back and say, are we providing a more compelling work environment for some employees. And I would say that, maybe there's a third of our employees that really do work with a computer and don't work in the field, right? They can be very productive at home, and probably more productive because they don't have to go to the silly meetings and they don't have the interruptions. So, I'm sort of holding my powder here. I'm not quite sure I've drawn a conclusion yet. I think we are as productive and perhaps more productive in this current environment. And in fact, here's a downside, folks, is we may be so much more productive, we don't need all the employees that we have.
That's a sobering thought.
One question I was thinking, just related to all these discussions, is when it comes to, you guys talked a lot about the importance of having the right people at the right meetings, and we seem to have a lot of standing meetings. And so, it seems like a lot of times with standing meetings, whether it's a daily or weekly thing, kind of everybody is invited or it's on everybody's calendar. So when it comes to face-to-face interaction and making sure your manager knows you're engaged, what advice do you have for, the best way to approach, maybe you don't need to go to those meetings, but you don't want to look like you're the only one in the group not going to these meetings, or, what's the best way to approach that to make sure that they know you're just trying to be productive and that you're not, blowing something off?
I think you said it, is that you're telling your manager, look, I'm more productive by doing this rather than being in a meeting where Rick has already said, if you're not saying anything, then there's no reason, or you're not contributing or adding value. I always look at it as adding value. And if there's no value being added by your presence being there, just talk to your manager and let them know. When you have that one-on-one, I think it's good to talk to your manager at least once, maybe 30 minutes once a month, just to get a feel for where you are, let them know what you need. But let them know, I think I can add value by working on this project rather than attending these standing meetings. And maybe I always like to especially give my manager, okay, this is the update on this project, if that's something that might be discussed at that meeting, and then kind of let it go like that rather than attending something where value added with your attendance is not necessarily being done.
Thank you.
Let me offer one additional thought. And this is, I wasn't thrilled with the video, but again, I've been around a while. So many of you probably enjoyed Jason, but his concern about managers, and recognize I've been a manager a long time, I think he's off. Most of you all work for boomer managers, first of all. So remember, through their eyes, when they engage you or interrupt you, as he would say, I think you should welcome that. Treat it as an opportunity to engage and promote your value. I have a manager, you all work for him, you probably know who he is. He has an insatiable appetite for information and details and questions. And I'm right down the hall from him. And every time he comes into my office, which is probably 6-7 times a day, I treat that as a sign of respect, right? He comes to me seeking value. He recognizes that I'm going to be responsive to him to reduce his stress and add value to the company. So, I get it. We all don't have great managers. And if you're in that situation, you need to, and you get to the point that it is impeding your success, you need to get a new manager. You need to move on out. But treat every opportunity with your manager or a senior manager as an opportunity to package how valuable you are to the company. I took exception to at least one of the M's. I also use meetings as a way to engage my employees, to give them visibility and access to me, and to let them know that I appreciate and value and respect what they're doing. So, I found a little bit of problem with Jason. I thought he was a little arrogant, to be honest with you. Did I just rain on your parade, Angela? Sorry.
No, actually, Rick, you said something because, for those of you who don't know, I used to support Rick. I used to be his HR lead. And Rick would always come down to my office whenever he needed to talk to me. It wasn't a matter of him calling down or having his secretary call me to have me come up there. He would pop in on me at any time, and I would welcome that because there was always a conversation that needed to be held. And the vice president that I currently support, Dave Olson, he does the same thing. He will just pop up at any time. And sometimes he'll stand by the door. Sometimes he'll walk in and just have a seat. And so, yeah, I welcome that. I feel like that's, I'm there to support. And if they take the time to come by my office, then it must be something that they need to really talk to me about. And they need to talk to me about it on my turf and not just always being in their office. So, and in my world, I'm constantly interrupted, and I welcome those Fridays off. I'm on 410s now. And a lot of times I schedule my days on Fridays working at home to get caught up on things that I couldn't get done during the week. So, and I'm from a different generation. So
Not to butt in here, but I want to put in a couple cents here. Being that boomer generation too, with some other panelists, a couple things I think have come across here. One, I don't think it's a one size fits all. I mean, at times you need meetings, at times you need collaboration. Coming from a research perspective all my career, and I saw Yuri was putting some chat in here, there's often a lot of times as a researcher where you need to collaborate together. You need to bounce things off. And I think Gilda had some of those same comments where it's absolutely true. But one thing I will say that I think this COVID has brought about, and maybe this teleworking and other things is, and I'm speaking out of school here maybe for our boomer generation, but there was a time where if you were at the office a long time, it looked like you were a really hard worker. And, it probably was a bias just because you didn't know, but I know as a manager in my past and other times, there's a lot of times these people that are there for a long time aren't being really productive, and they're just putting in a lot of hours. And I think perhaps this COVID may have opened people's eyes that it's not always putting in a ton of hours in the workplace and FaceTime that is important to being a good employee. And that, I think that's one thing that we may have all learned from this. I certainly have seen it, in my perspective of what I'm seeing now is that, that may be a good thing that came out of this is productivity is important. And there's a lot of different ways you can be productive. And us old folks have to learn that.
we have a couple more questions.
I'll ask this question. As we are still in this telework posture, even with SRNS and maybe other organizations, I'm pretty sure we have other representations of different organizations on the Zoom call. With us in this posture where we have some people that's fully teleworking, we have some people that's doing part-time teleworking, and the other part they're actually in the office. As we gradually get out of this and we get ready to really go back into the workplace full-time, how do you think that we should prepare ourselves? Because it's gonna be an adjustment, for one, and for us to grow professionally. What are some advices that you would give to us to allow us to keep progressing in our careers and keep showing that we do add value to our organization, that we do add value to our groups, and get back into that routine of actually showing that in person?
I'd be glad to kick it off. Janice, you're awful quiet out there. One of the things that I think is important is for you to own your career. Most people I mentor don't realize how much control they have. You know, you should never become the victim. And that's a little bit of what this video showed me. It was a victim mentality. You alone are responsible for your performance and for the value you bring to the table. So if you find yourself, you know, bothered by your boss or bothered by the meetings or bothered by the interruptions, you need to take control. You have more control than you think you do. One other thought I have is even when you're home, right, you're sending an impression, you're making an impression. You're continually being evaluated for your performance and the value you bring to the company. So anything that, you know, great performance also isn't enough, right? You have to make those connections and those networks and relationships and test your soft skills and marketing skills and packaging skills. And that's where I think telework is maybe a challenge, is if I don't see you working, I'll see your work products and that's great, but I'm also seeing someone else's work products and their relational skills. So, you know, don't underestimate the relational skills, at least for the boomers. We need that to assess your performance. So take control, don't be a victim, be assertive in your career of what you want and who you want to work for, and really test out that networking and relational skill set.
I would probably, my message would be very similar to Rick's. Most definitely don't ever be a victim, but I find a lot of people are always thinking about that next step versus what they're doing at the time. And I think that part is important, is to be the best that you can be at what you're doing. And if you do that, it will be recognized. I also agree with the marketing, and more than just marketing, not staying with the status quo. I mean, everyone can just go along with the group, right? But you should be the one out there presenting things and marketing and yourself and what you can do for the organization. And a lot of times you do that by being a change agent. And so you need to do a good job at what you're doing, but be a change agent. Don't always do it like we've always done it. Be willing to put out ideals and add value. Doesn't mean we can go do it sometimes, but you're trying to always add value, and that will market you. And I think part of that takes face-to-face and building those relationships, because you need to influence people to go along with what you want to go do. And so that's important.
Okay. I think one of the things that I've noticed in managing and leading groups with a lot of millennials is everything is instant. I want to move up now. I want to go do this now. I want to go. And the thing is, your career is important, but your career is built on what can you do for the company? You know, what are the things can you bring to the table for the company? And then you get all those tools and bring that along, and then you'll move up because you'll know how to get things done. And that's important. And you'll know how, and you got to interact with people to get things done at the site. There's very few things you can do by yourself. You know, you can program, but you eventually got to talk to somebody about what you're programming. So you got to be able to have the ability to have relationships, get things done, and look at and be that person that people that, like Rick, his boss, can come down the hall and know that when he gives him an assignment or he gives him an idea, he'll go and he'll bring him something back. And he doesn't have to worry about whether it'll get done or not. And see, that's the thing. And a lot of times I think millennials or younger people tend to think, well, I got to move up every 2 years or every 3 years. I have to move up. Well, I think what you need to do is build your your toolbox of all the things that are required to get work done on this site. If you're in Tritium, if you're in the EM, all over the site, what does it take to get things done? And it's going to be different in different places, but the more you learn, the better off you will be, regardless of whether you know, what your future holds as far as what you want to do, but you've got to learn how to get things done. I think that's the most important thing.
So somebody had a question. Is it possible to differentiate between creative and collaborative work? PK, you're muted. Somebody unmute her.
No, I was going to unmute myself, but I guess creative and collaborative. A lot of times when you collaborate, you come up with creative ideas because you're working with people, and so it's not just you. You get an idea, and the group kind of builds the framework for that idea. And I think it's important, the creativity when you're with a larger group. I think it's a better product at the end. And, you know, I think that creativity that you might have sparks something in another person in the group, and then you can come and put all those ideas together and come up with a better solution. Because that's the problem. A lot of times we don't listen to each other, and sometimes when you listen, you learn. I've been told that a lot of times that I don't speak up. Well, I don't speak up because a lot of times I'm listening, trying to understand what is the real issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you have to listen to understand the issue, but then other people have ideas and creative ideas that can help you understand, okay, how can I get to, what is the solution for us as a company or us as a team working? So I think that's important. And the creativity and collaboration, I think they work in conjunction with each other.
Let me take a quick stab at this as well. You know, I think that you need to understand your strengths. It took me 30 years to figure out what I was good at, I think, but I now know. And that's the first question I ask everybody that comes talk to me. What are your strengths? And if you don't know them, you got to go figure them out. Creative people could be people that like to work by themselves, right? They are perhaps introverts or analyticals or whatever. We have a lot of those. We hire those because they're good employees. But we also have people that are relational people, social people that love to collaborate. I think there's room for both. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think you have to sell your products, your deliverables, regardless of your creative or collaborative. And that's a skill set that I think is a discriminator, is if you can go out and not only do great work, but also be able to package and sell and influence, you know, that's gonna be the discriminator to accelerate your career, to get you advanced in your career.
Thank you, Rachel. That was good. Do we have any participants that would like to have any final thoughts or one last question? You can raise your hand and we'll. No hands raised?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up. The panelists, do you have any final thoughts? Ms. Janice, Ms. PK? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I really like this format. You know, I think it's a good avenue to get to people where they're comfortable, right? Most of you, I believe, are at home, and you know, I'd love to do more of this. I think it's a good opportunity to share ideas and thoughts and provide access to those of us that you don't routinely have access to. So very impressive. Thank you for allowing me to join you.
Thank you. Panelists, not panelists, I'm sorry, committee, any final thoughts with Angela, Haley, Sunny?
I just
Jen,
want to say
Allison?
thanks to all the panelists. And I know we first put tapping nuclear on hold just from the CNTA side. We were, kind of hoping, oh, maybe in a couple months. So I'm glad we put this together. And I think, again, like maybe you guys kind of have mixed feelings if you'd rather do an in-person event or a Zoom event, but I'm just glad we were able to get this together, and hopefully we'll be doing more of these. And we definitely would like to be getting back to more in-person events when COVID allows. But thanks to the panelists and thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Yeah. Well, I'll say I'm seeing a lot of positive comments from the participants, and there were some really good takeaways from this. So thank you all so much for being a part of this. I mean, there's a lot to learn about the multi-generational workforce. We have 5 generations in the workforce, and we all have unique needs. And it's been a challenge for a lot of companies, but I'm seeing all the positive comments over here on this side of the chat, and we really appreciate the input. But I'll say the only thing that drives me crazy at work is when people stop by to chit chat. Just chit chat.
Well,
That's the only thing that drives me crazy.
Well, I would say this, I don't think there's no right or wrong answer, because like Ms. Angela said, we have 5 generations in the workforce. So I don't feel like there's any right or wrong answers in how we do business. It's just getting used to the different generations and everyone's preferences. And what I took away from I tried to jot down some notes, but a lot of things that spoke to me was what Rick said, taking control of your career. We have to realize that we do have control over our careers. And if we feel like we are not in the right place to be effective and add value to our organization or add value to our group, then we need to understand what our strengths are and seek what area we'll be most productive in. And as far as the meetings, like they said, having the right people in the room, spend time planning out your meetings, making sure that you're staying on task and not drifting off into other conversations and things like that. Just kind of stay on task, be relational, and don't be a victim. That was a good one. Don't be a victim. Be the best that you can be and do the best that you can do. And learn how to get things done. I'm trying to read my scribble scrap. And be that person that the manager can come and count on. You want to be that person that the manager, if they have a task that needs to be done and they want it done quickly or they want it done right, you want to be that person that they can come to get that done. So, think about what value, what things that you can add to your current group and to your current organization that will allow you to succeed and it will allow you to move up. If that is your plan, you have to be able to be in the now and be effective and productive where you are now before you can really move on to anything else. And like Janice said, being that change agent, we have the baby boomers getting ready to move on and move out, and it's going to be, the other 4 generations that's mostly in the workforce. So we got to be those game changers and being those change agents to drive the workforce into the future and be successful. I think that's all I have. And I'd just like to thank, again, the panelists for being on. Everyone respond quickly and said you were willing to be a part. I really appreciate it. And if we have anything else in the future, I know that you will be willing to be a part again. If there's anything else, Allison or Jim, if you want to have any last comments, I'm done. I just really appreciate everybody's help and being a part.